Hello, and welcome to another installment of CVTV. I'm Tony Jones, Managing Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Today I'm speaking with Scott Navratil, Chief Revenue Officer for Commio. Hi, Scott. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So, to start things off, tell us a little about Commio and what sets it apart.
Yeah, Commio's been in the communication space almost coming up on a decade. Most of the principals at Commio were executives and helped build out some of the biggest communication platforms in North America. So, Commio, it starts primarily in the wholesale carrier space, and so some people may recognize some of these other names, SIP routes, Vamp, Think. And then, of course, we've rebranded in 2021. I think it was 2021 as Commio. So, a lot of history there. Commio was the first to bring to the carrier space or the aggregator space, which is a lot of resellers, MSPs, ITSP, CPaaS people, a hosted LCR routing engine. So previously, for outbound call termination or making outbound phone calls, whether it's in the US or around the world, a lot of resellers had to leverage a platform to do intelligent call routing or call routing based off of destination and price and so forth. And so SIP routes was the first to actually offer that to resellers, where they could actually come in, say, okay, I want to route calls to these specific carriers. And at that time, it was 30 carriers. I think now we have over 40 carriers, including all the tier one tandems. So when someone comes on to Commio, you can build your own routing profiles based on the carriers you want to send your calls to. We were also one of the first to, in fact, I think we're still the only one that offers the ability to high availability local numbers, or what we call DIDs. We have the ability, if you're using the Commio number, and if there's a network issue on how that call is being routed, we can fail your local numbers over to another carrier with almost minimal downtime. We also are one of, I think maybe one of two, maybe three people. I say people, but companies or carriers that can do the same thing with toll free.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So, can you give us a synopsis then of Commio's branded calling solution, signature calling?
Yeah. So branded calling, this has been around. I mean, the concept of branded calling and it's the whole ecosystem has been being built out. I don't know if I said that correctly, for quite some time. And so we're almost there. But really, what the concept is, it's kind of like we look at with RCS is a company or brand basically goes through a vetting and registration process. And then once they've passed that vetting and registration process, when they make outbound calls, anybody who receives a call from that brand, right, will see that brand information. They'll see that trusted or that verified check mark, and then the purpose for the call, right? Versus a call that like they might be getting today from maybe even their doctors coming in on a 7-digit number, and it can come up as unknown, or it can come up as spam likely, right? So the branded caller ID really is that one solution that solves it, and it solves it primarily for legitimate businesses, right? The ones who are the fraudsters, the ones who are overseas, they're not going to be able to go through this process. They're not going to get verified and vetted. And what'll happen, what we're anticipating, is that this could be the future, right? That the only way you can actually be able to get your calls delivered without being flagged as spam or moved to an unknown senders folder in your phone is to have branded caller ID.
On a similar note, tell us about the new RCS messaging solution, Instant App, and what should stand out for partners and resellers.
So here's the interesting thing is RCS is new technology to the United States. It's been around for a very, very long time outside of the United States, right? And things like WhatsApp. I mean, you already have a lot of that functionality. You already have a lot of RCS kind of, feature-rich functionality if you're, iOS to iOS, right, on iMessage and Android. What this does, though, is it brings a whole new level of messaging communications to the U.S. markets, to the U.S. carriers. And so, today, traditionally, and of course, everything still has to be registered. But what it brings is, today, for a lot of people, the SMS, right, simple messaging, I think, system is kind of like that old legacy plan or, platform, or, I'd say maybe protocol that's been out there for years, maybe even decades, right? It's archaic. You're limited to 160 characters. With standard SMS, you can't embed images or graphics, right? You have to typically link to them. And so, RCS really kind of changes a lot of things. So there's like basic RCS, which is like an MMS, message on steroids. So you have the ability to get your branding, your verified check mark, and you're not limited to that traditional 160 character format. So you can have much, longer, more text. You can have, embedded media with that, right? But it's usually static. And so RCS just kind of takes it up a notch when it comes to just an overall brand experience for consumers. And then there's the next step of that, which is like what they call rich business messaging or rich media, which now you can create. This is where Instant App, the name comes from, is because now you're providing an app-like experience inside the consumer's native messaging platform. So now you can send, instead of having to send a text message when, hey, click this link to go, check out our latest deals, you can have all of that in the message itself, and the consumer can scroll, they can have carousels, they can pick a color, they can click buy now, right? They don't have to go to some external website to have that experience. And so I think, what really, and this is not going to be for everybody. And I think for some people, in fact, we don't even know if it's going to be supported on political. I'm sure there will be a lot of consumers that'll be happy if it doesn't, but it really, for any type of business that really has to have that type of communication with customers, it really just takes it up a notch. It really just gives the consumer a completely different experience, which, usually leads to more conversion and then more revenue.
Great. And where can partners go to learn more about Commio?
Of course, Commio.com is, there's a plethora of information on both branded caller ID, RCS, and some other new products that we're going to be rolling out. I really, I really would say, if you're a partner agent, MSP, and you're working with companies that really rely on messaging and voice, go to Commio, go to some of our webinars. We have all our webinars. We have ebooks and all this stuff. Really kind of dig into what it is, because you're going to have to really kind of guide your customers through it.
Appreciate it. Scott, thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Be sure to check out the Companion Channel Vision podcast, which features the full conversation with Scott and goes more in depth on today's topics. Thank you to our audience for watching. We'll see you next time here on CVTV.
Take care.